Good afternoon. I'm Warren Hogue, IPI's Senior Advisor for External Relations, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this policy forum to discuss UN Security Council 2250 on youth, peace, and security. Co-sponsoring this event with us are the Interagency Working Group on Youth and Peacebuilding and the permanent missions of Jordan and of Sweden to the United Nations. Though it was passed 2 months ago, Resolution 2250 is already being hailed as historic because, as our friend Ahmed Al-Andawi, I'm glad you just got here, the Secretary General's envoy on youth put it, the text rejects the often negative narrative on youth and recognizes instead the significant role of young people in peacebuilding. It positions youth and youth-led organizations as important partners in the global effort to counter violent extremism and also gives impetus to the youth-led conflict prevention in addition to peacebuilding interventions to build peaceful communities and underpin inclusive government. IPI is pleased to be holding this forum and attracting such a large audience because we pride ourselves on providing a place for open and candid debate on the urgent issues on the UN agenda, which this one certainly is. IPI has taken particular interest in highlighting the potential of young people to make positive contributions to peace at the national as well as the international level. Almost 2 years ago, in April 2014, we hosted the launch of the Guiding Principles on Young People's Participation in Peacebuilding, a panel that featured Saji Prelis of Search for Common Ground, who I'm delighted to say today joins us as our moderator. An IPI research report in December by my colleague Mona Christofferson examined education for Syrian youth in Jordan in the midst of crisis, and earlier IPI research has aimed to enhance the political participation of youth in the Sahel and in Burundi. And in 3 weeks, IPI's Independent Commission on Multilateralism will convene diplomats and experts to take a global look at this issue at a 2-day retreat on, quote, engaging, supporting, and empowering global youth. My only other duty this afternoon is the very pleasant one of calling to the lectern 2 seasoned and distinguished diplomats who will start us off with opening remarks. They are Dina Kawar, the permanent representative of Jordan to the UN since August of 2014, and then following her, Olof Skog, the permanent representative of Sweden to the UN, who has been in that post since this past March. So, Ambassador Kawar, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hogue. Thank you for this opportunity, to IPI for hosting us today, and to the panel here, the young. We were not allowed to go there because we're above age, I guess, so that's fine. Anyway, thank you so much. And I just want to say a few words. Forgive me if I did not mention anybody in my thanks, but definitely the one thing I have to mention is the Peace Building Support Office and for all their work on the topic, and Mr. Handawi, who's, by the way, Jordanian, so I don't feel I need to thank him. I feel like he's part of us, but we're very happy to and proud to have him on because he's really very active and doing a lot of work. Youth issue is extremely important for us, important for many reasons. First of all, as the Middle East population in specific, but the world population, whether in Africa or otherwise, is majority constituted by youth. And therefore, we wanted during our membership in the Security Council to talk about youth in general and their role in peace building and in doing the positive things. Why I say that? Because we saw in recent years, and with the very sad events in our part of the world with Daesh, that many recruits were from the youth, and these recruits were neither necessarily poor, neither necessarily uneducated, and some of them, even many of them, of the foreign fighters did come from Europe, and therefore in what we we would think a privileged situation. All these are things that we needed to think about, and we felt that, first of all, youth issues should not be stigmatized as negative, as being part of what we're seeing in Daesh, but actually what we see in Daesh is just a small minority. And we wanted to discuss youth in general. And so with the help of Mr. Hindawi, with the help of the Peacebuilding, but most important is the effort and the will of our Crown Prince to push through this debate. So what we did was we started with an open debate in the month of April last year, which I'm sure some of you followed. And the Crown Prince did preside the Security Council to push forward this agenda, followed by the meetings in Jordan in the month of August, which included youth from all over the world. And at that time, we did promise this Security Council resolution, which was almost an impossible. And when the announcement came from Amman, the first thing I said, oh my God, how are we going to manage that? Because it's almost an impossible challenge. And but actually, one thing is true is when you're stubborn, things work. And I think part of the reasons people want to get rid of you and they tell you, yes, okay. And because we insisted so much and everybody was pulling left, right, and center. And so we managed to get this resolution because also there is a commitment within the Security Council that the youth issue, like we've handled women issue and children's issue, is an important thing to bring out and to discuss because it's a cross-border issue. When we talk about peace building, when we talk about all wars, I mean, you look at wars, you see that the young people are being affected. Look at the Syrian war, and the 5 years now into the Syrian war, you see that the youth who have had difficult times in getting the proper education, in getting a decent life. When we visited Central Africa, I'm mentioning it because we have a speaker from Central Africa, that is something that we need to address. So this is all I want to say. I did not read my speech, so you can thank me for that. I just wanted to say a few words. They're used to me, my team, that they write everything and I don't read, but that's okay. And I look forward to listening to all these messages, and afterwards, maybe if there are questions, we're ready. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and thanks very much to IPI for helping us to organize this together with Jordan. I'm really pleased to see the panel. It's not very often in the UN that you have a panel looking like this, the young, new, bright faces of the future. Although one youthful face in the shape of Jan Eliasson is missing, but I really like that. And since I represent the middle-aged white man who is seen as the obstacle to this kind of youth and women coming to the forefront, I'll be very, very brief. First, I just want to say that I'm particularly pleased to co-host this with Jordan. As my friend, Ambassador of Jordan, just said, they have done a fantastic job in not only in the Security Council resolution, moving the normative agenda forward, but also in very practical terms in the forum in Amman, etc. So chapeau to that work. I was, until just a few days ago, chairman of the Peacebuilding Commission in the UN for a year. Now I handed that over, but I remain as vice chair. And we've had the opportunity in that work, including a visit to West Africa, to meet with the future leaders, the youth in those countries. And we've done a very deliberate effort in trying to make sure that whatever we do in peace building, the next generation is involved. And we also had a separate session on the role of young people in sustaining peace, where we heard 3 or 4 messages that I just wanted to reiterate today, because I think they resonate very importantly. First of all, we need to move away from the narrative of young people being primarily a risk group or victims, and rather recognize young people as partners. Secondly, that the lack of adequate funding to youth-led organizations and initiatives is limiting young people's effort and possibility to contribute to peaceful societies, something we just discussed before coming in the room now. Thirdly, that young people are key partners in addressing the root causes of violent extremism, as my colleague from Jordan just said, and preventing its spread into societies. And finally, that young people's participation in peace building is a right, a democratic necessity and a democratic imperative in making societies more inclusive and peaceful. That is those, I think, 4 recommendations that really resonates with us, and we need to keep them in our mind as we move forward. Finally, a thought. 15 years ago, we adopted the resolution 1325, sort of a sister resolution to the work that has now emanated in the last Security Council resolution on youth. And we sort of revisited this issue of women, peace and security 15 years later, and we realized that still there's so much that needs to be done in terms of implementing that resolution. So my only message here is let's not wait 15 years to implement the resolution that the Security Council has just adopted. Thank you very much.
I think it's time now for the older person on the table, on the podium to speak. Well, first of all, Mr. Hogue, thank you, and for the International Peace Institute for hosting us on this historic occasion. And Ambassador Skoog, you mentioned this, but also you hosted the first Peacebuilding Commission meeting on Youth and Peacebuilding. It was very significant, so thank you for your leadership on that. And I want to take a second to reflect on this. Madam Ambassador. If not for your leadership and working collaboratively with so many people, none of us will be here. With your leadership and the Crown Prince's leadership and the Kingdom of Jordan, you brought to life the dream of millions of young people who are affected by conflict. And we thank you for your leadership. So, it is true, for me it's a great privilege to share this space with you. If you turn around and look around the room, there are so many people in this room right now. It's not because this is a fringe issue. It is a serious issue, and there's so many people committed and caring and who care about this. So thank you all for joining us on this, to hear from some amazing sheroes who are sitting next to me and another amazing hero who is sitting next to me as well. So, without further ado, let me first introduce myself before I get carried away. But my name is Saji Prelis. I am working with Search for Common Ground, which is an international peacebuilding conflict transformation organization. But I also have the privilege of co-chairing the interagency working group on youth and peacebuilding that actually help champion and facilitate this process and get some of these things to the table at so many levels. And then we had our friend and ambassador who took the challenge and, moved us forward in this. So I co-chair this with the Peacebuilding Support Office and with Unite Peacebuilders, which is a youth-led organization that has been really at the forefront of youth leadership around the world and when it comes to the nexus of youth and peacebuilding. What the Security Council resolution did was create a cultural shift. And Ambassador Skoog mentioned this, a cultural shift from seeing young people as the troublemakers or victims to seeing them as partners, and the need and urgency to engage them as partners in peace building and peace processes. So with that, I'm going to try to give the floor to our Deputy Secretary General, but who also has been a huge champion on youth issues too. So we should be very privileged and lucky. And it's my privilege to actually yield the floor to the Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Jan Andersen.
Thank you very much. I followed the simple rule that we young people have to stick together. Anyway, when I see so many people standing, and when I heard your enthusiastic, informal remarks, I will leave this text aside.
There you go.
I hope my colleagues in the office will excuse me. And
You're not alone.
I'm sorry I missed the introductions from my dear friends, Dina Kavar and Olof Skoog, and probably Warren Hogue, also our host. close friends, and I also see Oscar Taranco sitting here and being very much a moving spirit, and not only more than that, for the historic achievement of Resolution 2250. You actually, since 9th of December, are part of the present at the creation process. I look at Ahmed Ahmadali, my dear friend, the youth envoy. You've been working behind the scenes for a long time. You've been out there, out front also. And you who have been involved in this process should really, really be proud of this. And I look at Dina again, and I want to recognize the enormously important role of Jordan. You took the initiative, you were the driving force in the Security Council for this initiative, and then in the end you got Resolution 2250. You had your whole government and the royal family on board. You had the youngest ever chair-president of the Security Council conducting the key meeting on this issue. And of course, even if you are an international civil servant, we know where you come from, Ahmed. And you had, I think, was it 11,000? How many people in the big meeting? 10,000 or so. You with your youth, you were there also. Fantastic meeting. To see that leadership from Jordan is wonderful. And then also, since I was part of the creation of the Peacebuilding Commission once upon a time, 10 years ago, I'm so glad that you, both you, Oscar, of course, as head of PBSO, Peacebuilding Support Office, but you, my dear friend, Olof was my chief of staff for 3 years, so he knows all the secrets about me. You better be careful. That you were the chair of the Peacebuilding Commission during a very important year, taking over from our dear friend Antonio Patriota, and now handing over to Machara Kamau. And I feel and see now really vitalization of the peacebuilding work. The intentions are now followed more closely, the intentions from 10 years ago, and I'm very glad that the Gertrude Rosenthal, our friend in the as UN representative and member of the Security Council, took on this very important review, which now is turning into reality. And Oscar, I'm very glad you were so driving in this initiative to make sure that we have 2250. You know, 2050 has an elder sister, 1325. 15 years ago or so, the 1325 came about. And even if I'm the first one to admit that women do not play the role that they should still, and it's a long way to go, it has been important of reminding of the role of the women in peace and security situations. And very often they, like the youth, are the ones that pay the price, the highest price for getting in this situation. And before I proceed, let me tell you how happy I am that we young people are at the podium. These young peace builders are great examples, and your stories are very important for us to listen to. The process ahead, I think, now is very much going in the direction, like you hinted, and you probably have said it earlier, that we have to move to another conceptual level when it comes to participation of women 1325 and now youth in 2250, where we have to move away from the view of youth being the objects when they in fact are the subjects. And where we talk almost routine-like about you are the future, when you in fact are the present. And that we talk, what can we do for youth, when we in fact should talk, what can we do with youth. This sort of requires a cultural change. And I think this is a way of vitalizing the United Nations also, that we understand that there is such an enormous strength and force and energy out there with people who are waiting to do something about this horrible state of affairs in the world. And we cannot do that if we sort of think that we will send signals and from us to talk for them, when in fact we have an enormous energy and potential coming from them. And this is why 2250 is going to be classical. I promise you, you will say that I was in a room in IPA, I was standing there for 20 minutes, I heard these young people on the podium talk about it, and yes, now we have taken steps to make sure that youth are, taken seriously and part of the discussion. And if I were to mention, this is very informal remarks, I have no career to worry about anymore, but I would say, if I were to name a couple of 800-pound gorillas in the room that really are dangerous in today's world, I could mention the war in Syria, first of all, of course, which has occupied my mind for the last 4 years. But I would mention as one of those 800-pound gorillas is the unemployment of young people. Traveling around Africa, Middle East, Europe, Southern Europe particularly, and all over Latin America, this is a structural problem that we have, which goes so deep, which is political, which is economic, which is social, which is psychological. And if we don't deal with it, it takes away the hope. We cannot make it unless we have a hope factor which is alive and kicking and things happening on it. I met Guy Ryder this week. He was here, and I'm very glad that he now brought this initiative out and it's being discussed. But I think it goes deeper. I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that we make meaningful lives possible. When young men and women, men in this case, can't even marry or get a place to live and lose their sense of purpose of life, what happens? I was in Somalia about 2 years ago, and I came back with the figure 70% of the youth of the population is under the age of 30. But then I learned another scary figure. 70% of the young people in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, was also the unemployment rate. 70% of the young people in the capital were unemployed. Well, certain extremist groups certainly don't have any recruitment problems with those conditions. So this is just one thing, but I don't want to be stuck in a negative narrative. Unemployment, young people among refugee populations, young people in conflict, youth, children soldiers, all that. The negative narrative is horrible, but as I say to my colleagues in the UN, we in the UN must reflect two realities. The world as it is, but don't you ever forget that we also must reflect the world as it should be. Our job is to reduce the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be. We can't say close the gap. I would be unrealistic saying that. But we could at least move a centimeter, an inch, or whatever, to diminish that gap. That's our job. And that's why we should also remember and remind ourselves of the positive narrative that can be created. If you look at the people at this podium, if you look at the people in many of these rooms and outside, there is so much energy, there is so much entrepreneurship, there is so much hope and aspiration bursting with having a chance to grab your issue and work with it. And we must take this seriously. And on all fronts, bring in the youth factor. This goes for the substantive discussions, and then, I remember every time since 3025, I look at the podium and say, what about the gender balance? This is almost like a Pavlovian reflex in me. But now, from now on, I'm going to say, where is the young person on the podium? And I ask you all, now when you go to, or arrange, Warren, the panels, make sure that you have women, yes, or girls, but also young people, boys and girls, so that we have the sense that we are in this together. So, and then of course, what you also have, apart from the representing the vitality that you represent, that you stand for and live for, you also have something else, which at least my generation certainly don't have. When my granddaughter, does the internet and does the things with her iPhones, in an enormous pace, I realize, my God, what a gift you have. You have the future, you have the world, you have the people in your hands. 6.5 billion such things are in your hand. Nobody can hide anything anymore. The information, the knowledge factor that comes out of this, I don't think we've quite conceived it yet, but you have. You will have it much more. Borders will be less relevant. Hopefully the diversity will be the automatic instinct. And those who now today preach that we can only be together if we are of the same religion or same sect or same ethnic group, they will be passed by history. And we have to make sure that is the case, because they are now fishing in very murky waters, defining themselves as superior to those who are not in that category. And then you make a very serious breach against the document that I have in my pocket. The equal worth of all human beings. If you want to go to bed with a nice smile tonight, read the preamble one more time. The preamble, this is diplomatic, political poetry, and worth thinking about every night and when you wake up in the morning. Young and brisk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eliasson. You raised the bar, and I want to let you know, and the audience also, the world to come, you're going to hear some amazing stories from 3 dynamic sheroes. So I'm going to first start by introducing each panelist, and each panelist will start to speak, and then we'll engage in some conversation, and then we'll close after that. But all the speakers' bios and information you should have in this small packet, which it's probably circulated around. So you're going to hear what the world to come is.
I look forward to it.
Some from 3 amazing sheroes. We're going to start in Central African Republic with my sister Mati Nekomosuni, who is a local correspondent with Peace Direct and the founder of URU, a youth-led organization focusing on peace building and focusing on amplifying young people's voices in Central African Republic. My sister, over to you.
So, good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Martin from Central African Republic, as just Sadi said. Thank you, Sadi. So I'm a founder of URU. URU means in Sango, takeoff, in the national language. And our mission is to promote, support, and develop youth-led organization and also individuals working for peace, development, and security within the country. So URU is born based on an observation. The observation is that young people in CAR represent over 72% of the population. So it's like young people under 29 years old represent over 72% of the population. So try to imagine it based on a population of 4 million of people. So you see the rate is really high. And with the recent, this percentage is based on the data of 2014. So it's been a while. So for now, we don't have data based on all the things that happen within the country. So URU is born, on this first observation. And the second one is that young people are doing amazing things back home. It's like they organize in a formal and in an informal way, trying to tackle issues that are linked to economic or social or also peace process. As just recently, there was really involved in the peace process during the grassroots consultation that the transitional government organized with the support of the international community. And also during the Bangui Forum, during those 2 events, young people was really dynamic on mobilization within their community, not just in Bangui, but also out of Bangui in the most remote areas. And it was amazing to see that they are really able to gather people to talk about. They know what they are talking about. That's one of the most important things that people discover is young people are able to understand what's going on in the country and which role they can play there. So during those 2 events, that was really amazing. I worked with some of them. The third event was the first round of the election. So everything was fine. The situation is okay now. So we are waiting for the second round. But even there, they took time to learn a bit more about the constitution. And it was something amazing and really important for the future of the country. Once again, they represent over 72%. So if you take time to think about your constitution, to try to understand what's the future, so it's like you know where you come from and where you are going based on that constitution. So there was also really involved in a campaign for non-violent elections, and they keep doing it for the second round. And so even though they are really involved, they are doing things, most of the time young people are involved, but just for short period. There's no long-term approach of the involvement of young people. And most of the time you can justify it by the fact that they consider that young people are not really, they're not in the traditional vision in CAR. It's like traditional and cultural vision. Young people are not competent. It's like you can take nothing from them. But they prove them during the peace process that they're really able to be part of something big for the country. So this resolution is for me like a big step forward. I'm proud as young people, as young leaders, a young peace builder, as young woman, to see that all the work that I'm doing, not just me, but all the other young people around the world are doing, are recognized as something important. We all know that, but we have this, it's here, resolution, Security Council, right? It's like we did it. So it's something that you can really recognize it. I'm really proud, and I can use it now. We have the chance with the, we have the election back home, and so it's like an opportunity for our country. So we will have a new president, good or bad, but a new president. So it's mean a new dynamic. It's mean new opportunities, and it means also a new way, a new opportunity for young people to promote this resolution. And it's not just the work of international communities and all the work that the working group is doing here. Is also based on us, youth-led organization around the world, to really make this document vibrant and alive for all the other young people, not just in the capital, not just educated people, not just boys, because yes, most of the time when we talk about youth, most of the people think about boys. I don't know about you, but this is what I see most of the time. So it's really a document that we want to make alive for the future of the for the future of the place of young people in the. Sorry, I was talking, so I'm a bit lost. For the future of the young people around the world. So now I really hope that with this resolution, people have to see us not as just beneficiaries, but also like stakeholders, like co-creators. And I hope that we have it, but I hope that we will not be just a quota. I hope that we will be just an important value on all the work that are, on peace, security, and development also around the world. Thank you.
Now I have the distinct pleasure to introduce a young woman named Sabah Ismail from Pakistan, who is the executive director of an organization called Aware Girls, which she founded with her sister when they were 15 years of age. It's a one-of-a-kind organization in Pakistan. One thing unique about this woman who is sitting next to me is that in 2013, in the Pakistan election, she led a young women's delegation to observe the elections at enormous risk in Pakistan, which actually her courageous efforts helped in her being recognized as one of the 100 top leading global thinkers by the Foreign Policy magazine. So it's a tremendous honor for me to introduce you to Sabah Ismail. Take it over.
Well, thank you so much, Saji. I'm a young peace activist from Pakistan working to prevent violent extremism and promote peace in the northwest of Pakistan, in the tribal areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is an area which has been affected by conflict and religious extremism now since more than a decade now. In 2002, at the age of 15, I, along with my sister, established Aware Girls, which is a young women-led organization working to prevent violent extremism and promote peace in that area. We are using a leadership model that is called peer-to-peer education model. And in this model, we are engaging young people who engage other young people who are being vulnerable to the extremist ideologies and to be very vulnerable to be recruited by the militant groups. And we provide an alternative narrative that is based on nonviolence, tolerance, pluralism, compassion, and thus we prevent young people from joining the militant ranks and groups. In our model, we keep young people at the center of our programs. We are engaging them as partners in preventing violent extremism and building peace, because we believe that there are millions of young people out there who do not fall into who are not buying the militant agenda of these militant extremist groups, and they are a huge resource for us. We engage both young men and young women in our processes, and we shape our approaches accordingly, because we believe that because we experience a first-hand differentiated impact conflict has both on young men and young women. And as research has shown that gender-equal societies are more resilient to conflict and violent extremism. To prevent violent extremism, we, the young women from the platform of Aware Girls, have been working for addressing the vacuums which provides a fertile ground for the religious extremist narratives. By promoting active citizen engagement of young people, promoting good governance and democracy, interfaith harmony, and gender equality. When we invest in girls and women empowerment and political stability, we take away the oxygen from the extremist and religious extremist groups. Through the work of Aware Girls, we are proving it every day that we, the young women and girls, are investing in our communities in preventing violent extremism. We are dealing the issue with a holistic approach, and we are very well aware that preventing violent extremism, it's not just about preventing young people from joining the militant groups. It's just one part of the bigger problem of violent extremism. And part of the solution is to ensure policies which ensure inclusion, pluralism, social cohesion, protection of the freedom of the citizens, and gender equality. I speak here today on behalf of United Network of Young Peace Builders, which is a global network of youth peacebuilding organizations, just like Aware Girls. UNOY has been advocating for a Security Council resolution on youth peace and security since 2012. And when the young people from the platform of UNOY started advocating for this resolution, we were told that it's a huge task and it even may take more than 10 years even for the idea to get recognized. But I'm so glad that with the help of our partners, with the help of our supporters, we have actually done it. We made it. And the resolution 2250 on youth peace and security passed unanimously on 9th of December 2015. Well, in Pakistan, I'm going to use this resolution to engage young people in peace-building processes at the policy level. I'm going to hold policymakers accountable through this document if they don't. And I'm also going to use this document to bring a shift in the values at the community level, that peace is not just about men, it's about women too. We need to recognize that women face double discrimination due to gender and age, and especially when it comes to participated processes, especially related to peace processes. Let me also just clarify one more thing, that the use of this document by the national and the grassroots level initiatives, it doesn't mean that it's a bottom-up approach. So it's actually using it. This document is it's a bottom-up approach. Sorry if I have like these terminologies, but it's a bottom-up approach. And because this document was the dream of young people like me, and it's my document too, it is our document. It's really good that this resolution 2250 will empower young people and youth-led organizations to hold their governments accountable, to invest in young people, and to make the peace processes more inclusive. It's also a document to encourage civil society at the grassroots level to engage young people in the peace-building processes, and it will also encourage young people to be the agents of peace in their communities. This document has marked the history of the world by recognizing that we, the young people, both young men and young women, we are not just the victims and perpetrators. We are the partners in peace building. And peace cannot be achieved without us. It has to be achieved through us, with us, and for us. In the name of counter-terrorism and security initiatives, millions of dollars have been already invested in more weapons, more guns, and more bombs. Every penny spent on a gun, on a missile, on a bomb is injustice to every kid who wants to go to school but cannot pay for it. It's to every kid who is hungry but not fed. And it's to every girl who is denied of her basic rights. And it's to every young person who wants to be a change agent in their communities, but they are stereotyped as the troublemakers and as the extremists. So let's divert this investment. Let's invest in peace. Let's invest in young peace builders. Believe me, invest in peace, it pays. Thank you.
Mr. Eliasson, I know you have to leave soon. Do you want to?
I'd like to stay.
You
Is there another one?
Yes, there's one more
I
person.
will change my program.
Oh, fantastic. The same. Ladies and gentlemen, let me have this moment then to introduce a friend and a colleague, Yasmin Nasser Al-Masri, a colleague from Lebanon who works with Search for Common Ground. But her real talents are not just research, though. She's a young woman who actually helped in the nonviolent social movements in Lebanon for equal rights for women, employment opportunities for youth, and also fighting for civil marriages in Lebanon. It's truly an honor. Yasmin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Saji. Well, thank you for having me here. It's a real pleasure. And good morning, everyone. Well, when we talk about conflict and peace, I mean, it's about Lebanon and Syria. They are, I think, a good example of about the impact of conflict on youth and the status of youth in post-conflicts. Young Lebanese, women and men, have been struggling since the end of civil war to find their place in the society. And they were completely excluded from decision-making. Their future was hijacked, and yet they insisted on working together and overcome all kinds of dividing lines in Lebanon, such as sectarianism, and to achieve peace, security, and social cohesion. And I think it was a proof what happened lately in Lebanon with the civil movement, which is the Youth Think movement. Those young people, they came across the dividing lines and they gave a voice for the whole Lebanese society. They stood against the corrupted government and the ruling class and asked them for one of their basic rights, which is a decent waste management. And it's not just about the waste management, because the real reason is the bad governance in Lebanon. So, and the thing is, the international community wasn't there to support them. So for me, this is the importance of this resolution. And when we talk about the importance of engaging youth, it's about listening to them and giving them the space to express themselves. And in our project recently in Lebanon, one was based on police community. We gave those young people the chance to work with the police, with the authority, which for them is the bad guys. So yet they overcome this prejudgment on the police just for the sake of their security, of the security of their community in Ras Beirut. They worked together with them, and it was for the sake of the security and peace. Also, another proof of how young people want to be involved. They are eager to make a change, to achieve peace, is another project we worked on in Search for Common Ground Lebanon, which was with the hosting community, young people from the hosting community and all across Lebanon, and the Syrian and Palestinian refugees. Those young people, yet again, they overcome the fear of the other that we have, and which is the basis of so many conflicts. They worked together and was the sake for the security of their families and their communities and to avoid the conflict. So I think when we look at these examples, we can see how the youth can be a real change makers on the ground. They are there, they are totally aware of what's going on, and they want to achieve peace. And for me, working with youth and women specifically, it's about listening to their stories. And I got the chance recently to be in Turkey and to listen to the story of 20 young Syrian girls. And it's amazing. I can't tell you, really. It was amazing how they overcome so many loss. It was humongous. They lost their families. They lost their houses. They were obliged to move to another country where it was completely different for them. It was not their safe environment anymore. And yet they have big dreams. They want to be lawyers. They want to be teachers. They want to be mothers. They want to be physicians. They have big dreams. And it's all about embracing them. Believe in them because they believe in themselves. And they know they're going to be the future of Syria. They believe that they're going to rebuild a more coherent and peaceful Syria. So this is the importance of this resolution, because it backs up all those youth initiatives around the world. And we are telling the youth that we believe in you, we are listening to you, and we are here to support you. So, and it's about putting them all in decision-making process for them to decide about their future. So that's really important, and that's it.
The power and strength of young sheroes and heroes struggling yet doing amazing things around the world, whether it's in Syria or Indonesia or other places around the world. Mr. Jan Eliasson, before you leave, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I feel very energized by these comments. And also, you are telling stories from your experience, but you yourself are stories for us. The realities of Central African Republic, of Pakistan, and of Lebanon, and the horrors around Syria came to the room, and through your lens. I want to give you an extra applause if you will join me. And then I've dealt a lot with conflict resolution and mediation and other things in my life. And I must say, when you now look at your agenda, look at this resolution, the role is, we're not talking about youth in relationship to peace and security. But I want you to think of the three dimensions on the timeline for conflicts. Because if I do this, I think I did this first time here in this room last year, this is the life of a conflict. But sometimes Security Council has one thing in common with CNN. They consider the conflict here. There is a very important part I don't know what direction you want to see, pre and post. This is the life of a conflict. We have to broaden the definition of what conflict is, namely we have to include the prevention stage and we have to include the post-conflict stage. Actually, believe it or not, this is a charter obligation. The charter that you will read tonight, if you don't fall asleep, you look also at chapter 1. Prevention is stated as part of the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Then you can read with great interest, I hope, Article 33 and 34, which tells you everything you need to do before a conflict erupts. And 34 is addressed directly to the Security Council, that they should discuss conflict before they erupt. So to you young people, adopt the resolution, the definition of resolution in the context of both prevention and post-conflict. Don't get stuck in the situation where the television pictures tell you it's a crisis, it's a conflict, and you have a horrible humanitarian situation and huge peacekeeping operation we set up. No. Why should we wait for mass atrocities to occur, when we can act at the human rights violation stage. That's why we've taken this initiative, as you know, Human Rights Up Front, where we say, use it as a prevention method. If you feel that if you know in your country that young people cannot go to school because of some type of discrimination or whatever, then you send a warning signal, even to us in my team, that this is going wrong. We want to act when they feel the vibrations in the ground, not wait for the disaster to occur. And that goes for development also. Martin, you talked about development. Of course, if you have a huge drought, you know that within 3 or 4 months you have huge problems with lack of food, but also food prices, which often leads to unrest, social, political, and so forth. That's another warning signal. So I think you young people could be those who are out there, the catalyst for action on the early signs. And then when you are in the conflict stage, the horrors that we see in Syria, then you got to stand up for the right to education, all the expectations that you have to live decent lives. And once you are on the road, which you see, Dina and our friends in Lebanon and in Turkey, you notice that they come over. The Norwegian foreign minister, whom I met a month ago, he told me about a family that he met in Baalbek, southern Lebanon, and he told the parents he understood fully why they and the children came, because of the bombings, he said. No, the parents said, it wasn't the bombings. It was the fact that none of our 5 children had been going to school for 1 year and 3 months. It was unbearable for them to see their children not going to school. The horror is, of course, also that those children who came to Baalbek couldn't go to school there either, because 50% of the students, and you probably have the same in Jordan, were Syrians. So they probably went on a rubber boat to Lesbos in Greece. So here is what, and then you have child soldiers during conflict. Wake up, send the information, make sure the pictures come out, so at least we can try to do something. I was earlier emergency relief coordinator. I know how horrible it is when you reach that stage. That's why those who deal with disasters and humanitarian crises often are the ones who fight hardest for prevention. And then when I look at Olof and Oscar, the post-conflict stage, and you've done a great job here now. Because when you get, the conflict is over, you can't leave a patient who's been operated for a triple bypass operation, you go to work tomorrow at 8 o'clock. No, even a nation has a convalescence period. You have to have humanitarian action, of course. You have to have reconciliation processes. You have to bring recovery in. You have to get youth, get jobs, and so forth. All that process is so important. Otherwise, as you know, in so many examples, the conflicts relapse and occur again. So I would just say to you that try to use the wider definition. By that, you also reach into the fact that peace, development, human rights, and rule of law are connected. And I think that is a basically sound interpretation of the resolution. So if you can bring that back to your friends, I think you would also get a wider audience, because then you will see that it relates to getting in there early, acting in the crisis situation, but also take responsibility after the conflict, and also engaging into areas that relate not only to conflict, but actually to development and human rights. Thank you.
So as we broaden the definitions of this, let's also transform what peace tables are. Instead of constructing and getting young people to the table, let's engage them as shaping the table at the peace process itself. So with that message, thank you, Mr. Eliasson, for that very heartwarming thoughts.
Thank you.
Let me open up the floor for a little and engage the audience. This is such an amazing to look at you and see a sea of people who are interested in this topic. I'd like to open the floor up and see if there are any questions. I'd like, if you do ask a question, please introduce yourself with your name and agency, and keep your questions short or your comments very short and much shorter. And there are floating mics, so we'll get to you if you have it, raise your hand. And I'll take 2 or 3 questions at once. There's one lady here, and a gentleman back there, and one gentleman, yeah.
Thanks for telling your stories. They were really interesting. My name's Karen Colvard. I work for the Harry Guggenheim Foundation here in New York. I've been interested recently in watching the Fees Must Fall movement in South Africa. As young people, you've probably been paying a little bit of attention to it. The young people are out in the streets protesting in the universities, trying to make their voices heard in a kind of social protest manner. In a recent book, Zachariah and Philly and Adam Branch are arguing that this is social society too. This is civil society too. That this is a way that people marginalized people, like young people, like women, can have their voices heard even if the government is not listening very much. And I'm just wondering, in each of your contexts, is this a strategy that you would use, or as some people are saying, South African students have got it easy. Now they've got the luxury of protest, and in other places that's not an option. Just what about your situations?
Great, thank you. And we'll go to get two more questions. Lawrence in the back there?
Yes. Thank you very much. Lawrence Mully from the Commonwealth Secretariat. I must say, this is amazing. We can't start at a better note in implementing the Youth, Peace and Security Resolution, but by ensuring that the very young people who are advocating for peace are in the tables of discussions, are there to pioneer and move forward the agenda. So thank you very much for the organizers, for IPI, for the working group, to ensuring that we start by championing the young people, hearing their voices, hearing their stories, and this is what is going to have a long-lasting solution. For us to sustain and grow youth and peace and security, we have to engender the critical mass of the young people in the field. For a long time, we've engaged with young people who are talking about peace, but these are the young people who are doing the peace. So we empower, we incentivize, we finance. With the Secretariat, we're big on ensuring that we institutionalize youth-led responses on peace building, and this includes formalized youth networks that are given funding, coordinators that are paid. Young people want to settle down, they're looking at a future, having a family. They won't volunteer to do youth, peace and security work, as fancy as it is. You have to give them a sustained way of ensuring that they can take care of their other things and move forward the agenda they're passionate about. So thank you to the organizer. I hope that this continues this way, so that we learn from 1325, and in 5-10 years we'll be celebrating how successful 2250 has been, because young people will be driving the agenda. Thank you again.
Let's not wait for 10 years. Let's start celebrating as soon as possible this, if we change, right? One more question in the middle here.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm E.J. Flynn, Senior Human Rights Officer with the Security Council's Counterterrorism Committee. Thank you very much. Wonderful presentations. Should I stand up? My question is, the Security Council's CTC is interested in this approach. It supports a comprehensive approach to the threats of terrorism and violent extremism. And in that respect, we are very much urging governments to create opportunities and to support this sort of approach to the threat. But what would the members of the panel say, from your perspective, what should we be urging governments to do to make your work easier? Or would you rather have no involvement, or can they facilitate or set up, I don't know, forums for discussion, or just create safe spaces? Or what do you need from the governments of the countries you work in to allow you to do your work? Thank you.
Thank you, EJ. I'm going to invite to the stage also the Assistant Secretary General for the Peacebuilding Support Office, Mr. Oscar Fernando Terenco, to also join us. And there were three wonderful questions, well, two questions, one comment, and I'd like to see if our esteemed panelists want to respond to any one of them.
I would like to respond to the question from the Counterterrorism Committee. You said that what you should urge to the governments to make our job easier. It's very easy. Like the answer for me is very easy. Just tell the government to stop funding the weapons, stop funding the wars, and stop supporting the militant groups. the states who are supporting them, just stop promoting your own political agendas. Stop giving the spaces to the militant groups that they are being operated in so many countries. We know that the states are very well aware that where these militant camps are based. Like in our case, more than 70,000 people have lost their lives in my country. Hundreds of schools have been bombed, and majority of them were girls' schools. We know the security of citizens don't feel secure when they go out of their homes. Kids don't feel secure. The school was attacked in December 2014, killing more than 140 children. A university just a couple of weeks ago was attacked, and more than 20 people were killed. Professors, students, it's in the markets, it's in the mosques, it's in public spaces everywhere. So if you want to make our jobs easier, so that's just one my answer is just because the states and the governments very know that where they are supporting the militant groups, just stop it. And I think it's not an easy job. Of course, it's not easy. It's like me telling, but I think you will find a way to make our lives safer and easier in any way. The second, the first question that was about the protest and how we are going to use the strategy, yes or not, I think it depends on the local context where we come from. So it's we can learn from the other people's practices. If we see that we can replicate it or we can modify it according to our situation, then yes. If not, so I think it depends on the country-specific situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Kesif.
Yeah, so I will answer to the first question. The point is that, as she just said, it depends on the context. And back home, when you go in the street, when you do this kind of protestation, you said, it's a bit complicated because they can kill you. I mean, linked to all the tension we have now, the way, I mean, we are in a dynamic where the army can shoot people who are disturbing, the peaceful environment. So even just recently, it was at the university, also in Car, young people went out. They made a strike for their, I don't know the word in English, but the la bourse. They was waiting for the payment, and then they killed three young people during this period. So it's like this kind of approach is not really what it's possible to be done. So now they're developing new strategy. It's more diplomatic one. So it's like organizing meeting with the leaders, this kind of things. And it's also because of it's also linked to this culture that we have now of social cohesion, of to create a safe place when people can talk to each other. So the protest, we just can protest back home. It's a bit complicated. And for the second point, for the second question, I can say that, as I said, so we are in a new dynamic back home. So we have to think. I mean, if we have to ask something to the new government, it will be something like we have to sit down together. We are now co-creator. They have to recognize it first. So first of all, we have to organize ourselves. So have a safe space when we can sit down, create a kind of forum, like a Bongi forum, but for the young people, to design what we really want based on all the things that we already said during the Bongi forum, but to go more deeper in our approach of the thing. So it would be to have a safe space to organize these kind of things maybe, and then keep having an organization where we are sure that there's a real bridge between young people and the government. I'm not talking about the Youth National Council. I'm not just talking about it because it's really political at this level, but to see how to make the political approach, to link the young people and the political leader, but also the non-political person. I don't know if you see what I mean. No, I'm talking about the boy living in Bombari, in the most remote area. He don't know things about politics, but also to have this space where he can talk, he can exchange with the leaders. So I can say like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Yasmin?
Thank you. I totally agree on what Saba already have said regarding what we want from the government, but from my own government, actually, what I want right now is for them to come up with an election law or system that would reflect the youth voice, because the electoral law right now, it does not reflect that, and it does not include young people in the decision-making process in Lebanon. As for your question regarding the protest, we've been using the strategy in Lebanon. I personally advocate for peaceful protest and demonstration, because then there's a huge risk that the police will be brutal with the protesters if they use any kind of violent protest or demonstration. So it's a good strategy. Recently, it was used quite in Lebanon.
Thank you. At this moment, I'd like to take a minute and invite my colleague Cecile Masakurati from the Peacebuilding Support Office, but also the co-chair of the working group, to share with you some very good news.
Is on. Good afternoon. I'm Cecile Mazakurati. I'm with the Peacebuilding Support Office, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Working Group on Youth and Peacebuilding. And I'm just here to introduce briefly the practice note on youth participation and peacebuilding that was very recently finalized. We were hoping to have hard copies with us today, but even though we had a mild winter, a couple of days of snow are enough to stop the practice note from arriving. But you have here a picture of the cover, the address, where the email, the webmail, where you can find it. And if you Google it, it's the first thing that will come up. So this practice note has been a collaborative effort led by the Interagency Working Group on Youth and Peacebuilding. 15 different organizations from UN, civil society, youth-led organizations were involved. Many of the partners are here in the room. Peace Nexus Foundation supported this effort and got Jim Rogan right here to lead the process of drafting the note, working with all the collaborators. And we're very thankful to Jim for his excellent work. So the objective of this note is to present evidence-based promising practices on youth and peace building, which is why we're particularly thrilled to present it today, because we think this is an important contribution to the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2250. The practice note presents examples of programs that have been evaluated and that have shown to be effective in involving young people in peace building. So, for instance, there is an analysis of how the peace building priority plans in Kyrgyzstan, Liberia, Nepal, and Sierra Leone involved young people in the making of this peace building plan, but also in the peace building process that they're foreseeing. The practice note also look at how the poverty reduction strategy plans of Afghanistan, DRC, and Mali, for instance, include a focus on young people's contribution to development and stability. Practice note also looks at a youth center like the Kamenge Youth Center in Burundi that brings young people from 6 different ethnic groups and have them work together as part of social cohesion in Burundi. So sadly, a lot of more work for the Kamenge Youth Center, but a very interesting example, but also an example of how young people are involved in multimedia civic education in Cambodia, among many others. So this note concludes that donor and international organizations have a crucial role in influencing the lived realities of young people's everyday life, and that as an international community and as donors, we have a critical role to play in doing the right investments, in investing in programs that work, in investing in programs that have been evaluated, where we have evidence that this works, and that we don't work on assumptions of what might work for young people, what we think work, but we should go based on this evidence and based on the proof of concept. We've seen and we've heard our panelists here demonstrate how young people are active, how young people are inventive. It's our responsibility, again, to reach out to them, listen to what they want to do, and support their efforts. The practice note has a number of recommendations, and particularly to promote, of course, youth-led initiatives to make sure that the program go beyond the elites in the capital, but really go to the most marginalized young people. That this program foster intergenerational dialogue and collaboration, and that they are that they are also learning from other successful examples of violence prevention efforts, for instance, from Latin America and other regions of the world. There's a lot of cross-learning to do. So we hope that tonight, after reading the charter, please read the practice note on youth and peace building. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecile. I think as we think about the practice note, the other thing I think Mr. Hogue briefly mentioned also is, as you're wondering, this is a new field, but it's also an old field, an established field. So people who are investing in it, there's a lot of guidance already produced in this. The guiding principles of young people's participation in peace building provides a framework for why and in what ways to invest in and support young people. The practice note goes into deeper recommendations specifically around certain themes. So there's a lot of guidance now coming out. Let's not put them on our shelves to collect dust. Let's put it into practice and utilize them so we actually can invest in this amazing generation of peace builders who are actually clamoring for attention now. So with that note, I want to open the floor up very briefly. Maybe I can take 2 more questions and then ask my colleagues to respond and also think of closing remarks as well.
My name is Jahan Zeb, and I am from Global Peace Center, Canada. We have alluded to that member states and civil society and youth need to be responsible to doing the most of the work. But we are here honored guests and distinguished diplomats, and there are around 800 million small arms which are going to the P5 countries in Germany and Canada to the conflict zones, and how we are asking those questions and to making our own countries and own states and governments responsible to not send those arms and not invest their $2.5 billion per day in arms. So this is a reflection, but this is a question as well, how young people are going to reflect on that.
Powerful question. Anybody else? I'll take the question of the lady in the back there, and then I'll come to the other gentleman in front of her.
Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for this event. It's really, really interesting to see that we have such a great panel. And actually, I would like to ask the panel, like the 3 ladies we see there, how did you find the courage to do what you did and are doing right now? Because I think all of us actually need to understand that it's not easy. It's such a hard task. And I mean, I'm super impressed to see you, like more impressed to see you 3 women than Jan Eliasson, for example. And he's my idol. Okay, thank you.
Can you also just say your name, please?
Frida Lind from the Swedish Mission. If you want to talk to me later, just come around. I will also be at the delegate lunch later.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Diyar Khan. I'm from the Permanent Mission of Pakistan to the United Nations. My question is to the Assistant Secretary General. It's good to see so many young people here with so much energy and to have them work for peace, and they can positively use this energy. But let's not forget that when we task young people to work for peace, they will work for peace in an environment where there is no peace. And where there is no peace, we know there is violence, there are threats, and there are threats to life. So by tasking the young people to work for peace, we are also exposing them to certain risks. We have the example of Malala Yousafzai before us. We know that a young boy of 10 years old was shot by Taliban in Afghanistan a few days ago. So are we also taking any precautions, any cares to protect the peacemakers? I think it's an important question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my panelists here to start to think of some answers for those very strong questions.
They really are very, very powerful questions. Because I come from Pakistan and it's from a very conflict-affected region. So talking about the courage, it comes from when you experience that situation, when you are there. And you know that you have to take a step, and you know that you have the responsibility. So, in my life, I was attacked because of the work that I do. My family was attacked, and I could relate myself when Yasmin was telling the story of the Syrian girls. Because there was a time in my life when I became refugee in my own country, and it's not just packing your bags and just moving to other place. It's a whole it's a traumatic process, and I think that really relate to the question by the Pakistani permanent mission to the UN, that yes, the life of the peacemakers it's at risk. But the thing is that there is the greater things in the world, they just don't, when you sit in a comfortable space, and they don't come from that spaces. You have to be in a challenging situation, and then there is something, change can happen. So yeah, I know that this is these are, I think that's my comments. And for the rest, I think that do not just take this discussion just for granted. The people, especially who are sitting here, most of you may not have experienced conflict, or it might be just coming to a meeting and attending this discussion. But it's you have to please, when you go back to your work, to your spaces, please do think of the people who experience conflict from their eyes, and just take some steps. You can help by recognizing the peace builders, by highlighting their issues, by talking to the states. It can be step at any level, but just don't take this discussion at least for granted. I think my courage is actually basically from my parents, and especially from my father, because he's a human rights activist as well. And he actually, it's a kind of transformation, because once in his lifetime he was imprisoned because he spoke against the Taliban in Pakistan. That was his only thing, that he didn't want militant groups. He said that militant groups are a threat to the world, not only to Pakistan. And he was just arrested because of this. He was in prison for a month, and it took him 10 years to struggle in that trial. It's not a wrong statement. It's just that you are working for peace. So I think that's actually my courage. And at that time, I was in school, and at that time even I didn't miss even a day from my school. All of our siblings, we were going to school. We were talking to the media, although we were very a school. I was in 4th or 5th class, but still sending press releases to the media in my country to release my father, that he's right. So that's where actually my courage comes from.
Okay, regarding the small arms thing, I think it's about to keep reminding people about those facts, about statistics, because sometimes we tend to forget about these issues. So I think awareness raising and keep on mentioning these topics over and over again. As of how did I find the courage? I mean, when you see the need, you feel like you need to interfere, you need to make a certain change. And for me, growing up in a patriarchal society, it was the key for me to stand up and say, this is where it should stop. And then you go deeper and deeper, and then it becomes a matter of a daily life. So because you see the discrimination against you, and you feel once you reach a more the gender equality, more equality among all the citizens in your society, then that would be part of achieving peace. So you feel you need to be engaged. Thank you.
Very powerful indeed. Cassie?
So if it's about courage, I will say that for me, it's coming from my vision. I think I'm a big dreamer. I'm a real big dreamer. It's when you're a dreamer, you see things. Some people can feel that you're crazy sometimes because you see things in a different way. It's like when there's something awful, you will say that, yeah, you will try to find, oh, what's the good behind. And more and more, at the beginning, I was a bit scared because people were like, no, you will not be able to do it. Who do you think you are? There's something coming every time. Like, do you think that you are the one able to change car? People used to say that every time. And then day after day, I met some other young people around me. I wanted to stop. I wanted to let it down. Then I met some other young people around me, and I realized that, yeah, there's some other big dreamers around me, and they also have a vision for the country. So when you know that you are not alone, it's not about education. It's really not about it. It's really about even the way sometimes some of the young people have to explain the vision that they have for the country. They don't have complicated words. They don't have, it's just, yeah, I want my quarter to be like that. I want to walk in the street. There's no lie. I want to have light. I want to go to visit my family in Bimbo, in some kilometer from the country. It's a way they dream the country. So when you have an aggregation of all those things, yeah, in the morning you wake up and you're just happy to do what you do. So you see change around you. You see that you see that you are able to change things not alone, but with all the people around. And as Sana said, Sana, sorry, I forgot the name. But it's also coming from the parents. That's why the education we give to our children is really important. I'll come back to it because I saw that in car, people are not able to do, they think that they are not able to do things because also the social environment saying that you will not be able to do it, or the father said that I'm born agriculture, so yeah, we would do just agriculture, you can do better than that. And I think I was lucky to have parents who think behind it. They don't see me like just a little girl, but like someone able to change things. And it's also something that I try to share around me in the work that I'm doing. And I think it works because we are just wonderful and powerful young people back home. So yeah, thank you.
Oscar, do you want to make some comments also?
Well, thank you. I also feel very, very honored to be here and to listen. And as I'm hearing all these voices, of course, I think we should be now in the business of translating this huge effort that has been done. There's no more excuses now not to see how we translate all these principles, all these goals, all these decisions that have been taken by one of the most powerful decision-making centers of the UN. The Security Council now has outlined very concretely a series of actions, a series of obligations that we have, whether under peacekeeping mandates, where there's very important protection roles, in contexts where we have special political missions, but also in contexts where we see very difficult political transitionings happening. So for us and our Peacebuilding Support Office, working very closely with member states, is how do we translate, I think, a very important message, which is that we need to work with youth, not only because of the courage, not only because of the ideas that will come, not only because they're the majority of the population in many of the countries where we are involved and affected at times by conflict, but also because of this conviction, because of the vision, because the future is now and not tomorrow, as Jan Eliasson was just saying. And we need to translate this into practice. Now, we have a very powerful instrument to do this. One of them is the networks, is these organizational mechanisms that do exist, which we now need to empower, which we now need to finance. We do have the instruments. We have the Peacebuilding Fund. Before coming to this meeting, we were discussing within our office the launching of an initiative actually to translate this resolution into concrete support to organizations on the ground. And so we are now actively seeking to actually show the way of how the United Nations can actually work in these very difficult and at times very dangerous environments. And as the question relating to what is the obligation of the United Nations, I think the obligation is first and foremost to work with we the peoples, and we the peoples are the young peoples, are the young women, the young men, everywhere where the UN is present, we need to work with everyone that is involved in that society. The healing, the prevention, the response, the institution building involves everybody. And the empowerment factor is about changing the way we do business. And here, at least the Peacebuilding Fund, as we said in Amman, in the global meeting, this was one of the most important issues that was being discussed. How do we translate all this discussion into operational response? So we have the guidance note, we have the guiding principles, we have the resolution, we have no more excuses. The issue now is to actually track what we do concretely to make this happen. And so at least from our office and with the rest of the UN system, we are committing ourselves now to start programming very much as we did when Resolution 1325 was approved. Resolution 2250, one of the most immediate responses is the Peacebuilding Fund. In order to what we like to call, have the proof of concept that by investing in the positive role of young people in their society, we can do transformative change. Transformative change of the sort that the SDGs are calling us to do. So again, we are committed now to work with our generous donors, member states, the Peacebuilding Commission, etc., to actually translate this and to support courageous people, create a space of dialogue, and be a very close and strong partner. So this is what we commit, and we are breaking and changing the way we do business, I think. Thank you.
Breaking and changing the way we do business. Great. I'm going to start with my right and go down, and I'll ask my colleagues to share some closing remarks. Cassie?
So yeah, I will repeat just what I said before, because I think I said everything. But I will repeat just what I said. Please, really please, we have to use this resolution really above to be a tool, to be a document, we have to make it alive, to make it really understandable for the young people, for all the young people, not just educated. I'm sorry, I'm always talking about the educated and the uneducated, but this is a reality. This document, the risk is that maybe just educated people will be aware of that and use it. But we want it to be for every young people around the world. So we have to find a way to make it alive, to make it understandable, to make it for them to use it. So this is what I can say, and I think that's the role of everyone, as I said, not just international community, not just government, but also youth-led organization and each young people in the world. So thank you.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing, that silence always perpetuates silence. And I made a promise to myself almost 13 years ago that throughout my life, I will always speak up for women's rights, for peace. So I think now the resolution is there, and there is no excuse for all of you to be silent anymore. So we should take steps for the implementation of the SCR 2250. Thank you.
For me, I just want you all to listen to the stories of the young women and men out there, because once we listen to them, we will allow them to achieve peace.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Enjoy your afternoon. Get to know them. These are our sheroes of today and tomorrow.